Hello, my lovely friends. Please ignore the general disaster that is my life right now. We're going to be trying to get that together in this vlog. But more importantly, we're going to be reading some books. This is a themed reading vlog in which I am going to be reading 3 thrillers. One of the things that I am trying to do this year is read more of genres that I like but don't necessarily get around to a lot. So I picked 3 of the thrillers that are on my shelf. Do I know if these are strictly thrillers or if they're mystery thrillers or what the difference is between a mystery and a thriller? No, that is a project for a later day and another time. I just wanted to read some books and start my year off with possibly some 5-star reads. I think this one has a very good chance of being a 5-star read for me because I have loved everything that Dot has written, even the things that I don't think I will love. So in this video, we will be reading Deadly Waters by Dot Hutchison. This is a thriller set in Florida, and it is based around like these dead bodies that keep cropping up in alligator-infested waters because apparently it's starting to look like someone has been murdering like frat boys or a whole bunch of guys from the same fraternity and then kind of dumping their bodies there so people won't find them. We also have Ruth Ware's The Death of Mrs Westaway. This has been on my shelves for a while. I picked it up at a used bookstore. I think I paid like a whole 75 cents for it, guys. Ignore the $10.98 on here. This at my thrift store was 75 cents. I have no idea what this is about because the blurb on the back says nothing. Absolutely nothing about it. It is a perfectly executed suspense tale, very much in the mode of Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. Does that tell me much? No, because I have not read Rebecca yet. And then we also have The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This is a retelling of Jane Eyre, but we're focusing on the woman, Mrs. Rochester, the first Mrs. Rochester, who is locked in the attic because she is crazy. And so they weren't exactly great about treating people with mental health back then. So this is a retelling. I really enjoyed Rachel Hawkins' YA series that I have read, so I'm looking forward to getting into this. I'm going to be starting with one of these 2 books because I need an audiobook to listen to while I take care of things. You can't see it. There's a whole other situation going on off screen. And I also need something to listen to while I set up my bullet journal.
Hello. I have an update and a package. We're going to start with this first because it's going to be the easiest thing to deal with right now. I'm very excited to be getting this. I'm going to do this without showing y'all my address. Oh, right. Oh, this is going to be difficult. Yes, perfecto. Alrighty. I got a little tray that can go on my bed and I can put it over my lap when I have my computer, and like, I believe there is a thing that's supposed to go there, but I can have my laptop on it and all of that good stuff. Alright, hold on, let me see if I can find it goes right there. But I do not see it. Alright, we'll have to solve the mystery of the missing piece later, but I do have an update on the death of Mrs. Westaway. I thought we probably were investigating a murder. I don't think that that's the actual mystery that we are going to be tackling in this book. Hold on, let me figure out where I am in this stupid book. I'm like 79 pages in, and we are following Hal. Her mother has just died. She's 21, and she currently works as a tarot card reader on like the docks somewhere in, I think it's London or somewhere in it's somewhere in England. I don't entirely remember where. She's dealing with a whole bunch of bills, and she's got someone that's kind of after her for some money that she borrowed, and yada, 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 yada. And she ends up like getting a letter that her grandmother has died. Problem is, her grandparents died before she was born, as far as she is aware. So her mom supposedly doesn't know who her dad is, doesn't know who his parents were, and none of that. And I think it's got to be on her mom's side because the last name is Westaway. Like her last name is Westaway. The woman who died's last name was Westaway because she married into that family, and so she's got a massive inheritance supposedly, and she's like just got the right skills because she is a tarot card reader. She's kind of got the right set of skills to read people and do the research that she needs to do. And so she's going to this house to be there for the funeral and the reading of the will and all of that, and try and convince these people that she is the Harriet Westaway that they think she is and not an imposter. I don't think, I think she does not know this, but I don't think she is an imposter. I don't think, like, the fact that her grandparents died before she was born, she never met them, never knew their names. Well, I mean, she has her mother's birth certificate, but she's never met them. And we know from the beginning that birth certificates can be forged. So I think her mother may be living under another identity, although why she would not have changed her last name, I don't know. It's a very introspective kind of writing style. I don't know if I've said that already. If you don't like writing styles where the character is going to be distracted by thoughts of the past and like continually giving you information about their background that is relevant to situations that are as they're happening and like kind of interrupts the situation, then this isn't going to work for you. I don't mind that so much. I mean, it's got a very kind of dry, not quite girl on the train narration style because Hal is not, like, she's not actively an alcoholic, but it's got kind of that similar style. So anyways, I will update you when I'm further in.
Well, I know what I want to watch, but we don't have to watch it.
What, you want to watch Critical Role? You don't want to watch the Exandria one? Or are you filming a vlog?
I just sat down to do because there's another, hold on, where's Critical?
There's the recap episode. The group therapy session.
The group therapy session. We could watch that. I want to watch this one. Abria is the DM for this one.
Sure.
So, anyways, let me do this update so I can open my book from Kara. Hi, hello. We have an update. Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware has been finished. This is going to get 3 stars. If I did half stars, it'd probably be more of like a 3.5. I don't love it enough to justify making it a 4-star, but I really did enjoy reading this book. There are some issues that probably I feel are, or some things that I feel are probably stylistic choices that Miss Ware made. Like, and some of it isn't even stuff that's real, like bad in, moderation. Like the ending of the book was fantastic. I loved how it ended. It's got one of those endings that I adore. It's similar to why I adore the Butterfly Garden. It's just like you have that thing that the way that the denouement at the end, the wrap up at the end. I really enjoy having thrillers, mysteries that have that kind of ending. It did drag a bit in the middle-ish there and took so long. There was just like we would go on these things that felt like tangents, and I'd be like, I know that this is going to make sense later, but it feels like such a tangent. This is a very, very slow book for something that is a thriller and something that's going to keep you thinking. Like, I was continually being like, okay, so I have this piece here and we have this piece here, but wait a minute, now we have this, which means that this piece is not what we thought it meant, and so now we have to move this over here, and this, maybe it's this person that is actually the person that did the thing. I'm not going to tell you what the thing was, but like, okay, well, no, because then these things don't match up, so maybe it was this person that did the thing. But no way, okay, so she had me going back and forth and unable to decide on so many things. It was great. Now I am very proud my original theory was correct, and then I figured out about 3/4 of the way in how exactly everything worked on the family side, and like the way everything breaks down and who she, like, I was like, okay, you know what, I think this is what happened. What I didn't see the way that her mom, like, talking about her mom's death at the beginning was going to be mirrored in the end. That's as much as I will say about that. That was a really interesting and clever thing, and like just the way that everything ended up kind of coming together at the end and was connected. So I enjoyed it. Ruth Ware does this really interesting thing where she will give you the person's reaction to a thing and then tell you what it is they saw. And like, that makes sense on some level, but I do feel she kind of overused that, because there were a couple of places where I found myself going, Ruth, babe, what the heck are they reacting to? I am confused. And then it would take a couple of sentences, and she'd be like, oh yeah, this is what they saw. There were a few moments where, like, you knew what she was seeing. You knew because of her reaction, you knew what she had to be seeing. Like, there's a picture that she sees, and I'm like, oh,
I know why she's reacting to this picture the way she's reacting before she describes the picture. But it just is kind of an interesting way, and I think it could have been used a little bit less. But I thought that the way that Ruth Ware really delved into the characters and things like that, I will say this does have major trigger warnings for violence against women. It has trigger warnings for just like general parental neglect or emotional abuse. That's not even close to a spoiler. Like, you know from the get-go that Mrs. Westaway was terrible to her children. If you are grieving a family member, I also think like this does heavily focus on or explore the fact that even 3 years after her mother was killed in this random hit and run accident, Hal is still grieving her and still dealing with that death. There is a really strong theme of grief throughout this whole novel that is tied to her mom's death and how her mom's death affected her. She's not necessarily an unreliable narrator in the way that you would like, I don't think she was an unreliable narrator, but she was also like, she was definitely a narrator that thought she had more pieces than she did. Like, the entire time she's trying to put things together, and she continually, like, there were a couple of times she's like, okay, I think I know what's going on. Very much as like me, the reader, was like, I know what's going on, and then something would happen and she'd be like, oh wait, do I know what's going on? That was fantastic, how she was second guessing herself, how she's sitting there going, okay, this is what I want to say, or this is how I feel, but am I right, or do I need to take a step back? And all of that, it was really good. Like, she's a very analytical, very like smart young woman. It explores to some extent like how status affects people at different levels, because you have like the Westaways and the fact that they're all like had a terrible upbringing, and then her mother, like Hal and her mom, like she had they were poor the entire time. They were, scraping by, but she knew she had a parent who loved her. If you need something that's fast paced, I wouldn't recommend picking this up. This is very, very like slow, and it's thoughtful, and you have a character in this that she is continually like kind of going off on these tangents a little bit. It did start to feel a bit repetitive, even though it was like new information we were getting, and a lot of it was interesting. I think it could have handled like maybe 30 pages cut. Just some of the stuff there was a point where we were in a car and like, something is going to happen, but we kept going, we just kept doing things in the car, and we left the house, and like, it's like, you have to go back to the house. Like, it just, there was a whole section of it that I was like, okay, I understand that we needed, but why couldn't we have just had this happen earlier instead of getting as far as we did in the car? Why did we have to stop like 3 places in the car? There were things like that just like, I can see what Ruth Ware was doing, and I appreciate that, but they also kind of slowed the story down, and I don't listen at 1x speed. I listen at like 1.8. So like, it's not that the narrator's not talking enough. The story did start to drag. I am going to be moving on to The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I'm going in order of which ones I will think I will, like, I'm building up to the one that I think I'm gonna like most. I also have the audiobook for this one, and I do not for Deadly Waters, and my physical read, I still have a little bit to go, so we'll see. I might finish that tonight, though, and then I would be able to start Deadly Waters and read that tomorrow. I'm gonna have to think on that, but there is an order of business. This is why I turned the camera on. I got a package. It is from bookshop.org, so I'm pretty sure this is my birthday present from Kara. I hate these packages because they always cover the little tabby with the label. And it's like, guys, come on. I would like to get into the package sometime this year without having to rip off all of my fingernails. I don't know what she got me. I just know that she did mention that a birthday... Oh, she got me... Okay. Oh, what... Kara, what is this? So they're wrapped. They're very pretty. And I think they're supposed to have notes, because why do they have this, but they put no note in it? So, all right, so let's start with option number 1. Oh, okay. It is not. It is a fiction book. It is covered in glitter. How did this happen? It's Rosemark by Livia Blackburn. I believe this sounds familiar. Okay, so we've got a healer
who has contracted a deadly plague. We have a soldier who's dealing with PTSD, and basically they're going to end up needing to team up. I guess it sounds like she needs to erase his memories so that he will be able to go back and, like, be a soldier again. And they are being tasked with some sort of, like, getting at him so that he can do some sort of assassination plot. I believe I've heard Kara talk about this, and I was, like, super excited. And then this, or not super excited, but, like, it sounded interesting. So, and then this. What is this? What is this? I forgot to update my wish list this year. She did take me to task for that, but it seems like you've done pretty well without. Yes! Okay. She got me Rapunzel's Revenge by Shannon Hale, Dean Hale, and Nathan Hale. This, you had to have gone to my want to read on Goodreads to know that, unless you liked this, unless you also had read this and liked this. Okay, it says book 1, graphic novels seem perfect for a year-long readathon. Technically, it's only 11 months. And 2, I read the first book in this duology and loved it. Political fantasy with a great slow burn romance. Merry Christmas and happy birthday. Love your friend, Kara. Thank you, Kara. So this is Rapunzel's Revenge, and it's like it's the retelling of Rapunzel, but like it's an Old West retelling type thing, or involving Rapunzel. I don't entirely know. I know I've known about this. This was published way long time ago. Like, let's see, Bloomsbury Kids. Yeah, this was published in 2008, and then they updated it in 2021. It doesn't count if I didn't buy the books. It doesn't count to this mess. It is Sunday now, the 8th. And I am 66 pages into this book, so this is a very interesting, like, I wasn't sure I was going to like this, because I don't know if I've mentioned it, but I don't have really, like, I like Jane Eyre. I like it as a story and as a romance and all of that stuff, even though it's a little bit darker. It's a gothic romance. Like, it fits the genre, yada, 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 all of that stuff. So I actually kind of like the main couple in Jane Eyre, to some extent. But I am liking the things that Rachel Hawkins has done. She really took, like, the dynamics and, like, the inspiration from Jane Eyre and is sort of creating her own story almost. We have Jane, and she is a dog walker that walks dogs for a bunch of people in this place called Thornfield Estates. Thornfield or Thornwood? It is Thornfield. She ends up meeting Eddie, who is the stand-in for Mr. Rochester in this place, who is recently widowed. His wife just died in a boating accident a few months ago, and she's not suspicious about that at all. We will see. So far, I just started part 3, and so far, we've met Jane. She's a little bit of a kleptomaniac. She likes to steal things from people, not necessarily to sell them. She doesn't sell all of them, apparently. But Jane's not her real name. She's kind of running from the past, and she likes to kind of steal things. We know that she was a foster child, which tracks with all of the rest of this stuff. And then Eddie was married to a woman named Bee, and she was kind of, like, rich. She had her own business. She had, like, this kind of Chip and Joanna Gaines-esque store called Southern Manners. They don't talk about, like, we haven't gotten into any of his past except for some snippets. There are a couple of the other points of view, apparently, other than Jane. We've met one of them, but there's another voice actor that we have not met yet, which I think is a male voice actor, but I'm not entirely sure. So, in part 2, we kind of find out something about what happened to Bee, but the thing is that early on in the book, I don't think we can, I don't know if we can take that at face value, because that's a very early place to have played that card for your audience when this is going to be so much about what happened to Bee Rochester. I like the writing style. I like Jane as a narrator. She's still very cynical in this one, but she's also, like, much more confident, much more put together. Like, she is very much like an Emma Swan type character almost, where she's like, I'm doing what I've got to get by. And she is staying with a friend that she knows from her foster care days named John, and then trying, like, she is actively, like, it's really interesting because she's much more, like, actively trying to ingratiate herself to Eddie and to get him interested in her and take advantage of his interest in her. So we're almost seeing this be flipped on its head, where the people who are being predatory are the people that you're rooting for in the first book. And Adele is his dog. So funny. That is really funny. That is the one thing. I would have had him have the dog before he meets Jane, but it's kind of implied that he got the dog because he met Jane so that she could walk the dog and he could get to know her better. So it's like they're both equally taking advantage of each other. I've got some more cleaning that I need to do today, so I may get kind of far. It's a very short audiobook. I got it from my library, and then we'll move on to the next physical book that we have to read.
Please ignore the disaster behind me and the fact that I am absolutely miserable right now. It's fine. It's allergies. I am here with an update. I have finished The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. So it's an interesting take on Jane Eyre, and I appreciate it. I still like the original Jane Eyre better. Or like the original ending of Jane Eyre. Like this in and of itself is a really cool story, and I like the story in and of itself. But if we're going to get into like preferences, still prefer the original Jane Eyre. But this was fun. I think there are a couple of things that like could have happened to make it a little bit, so like there are things that are revealed at the beginning, and it's very much like there's a reason she reveals that to you so early on. However, I think that there is a point of view that we needed earlier in the book as well. It's really like one of those things that just kind of, if you like domestic suburban housewife drama, this is something that you may be interested in, because it's this girl who's coming in as an outsider, and she is kind of looking at this neighborhood and kind of observing and like playing along with their stuff, but also actually really seeing them for what they are. I think that there are, I don't know, I really didn't care about anybody but Jane. So there was that. That was one of those things that I was just like, you know what? Nobody else here matters, and I'm kind of like, I'm not, like the back of the book says which Mrs. Rochester will get her happy ending, and I'm just like, well, I only care about one of them, and the other one can suck rocks. Which seems to have been a slightly justified opinion of her. So there are 3 points of view in this book, and the third point of view, I think we needed to have sooner. That's my only like real like constructive criticism. I think getting it when we got it and all at once in the way that we got it kind of killed the momentum for me. I think if we had built like, there is one of the points of view has a kind of ambiguity to it that is we could have also been put into this third point of view and had both of the kind of like had that ambiguity, so that you're sitting there going, oh well, I think like you think you know what happens, but you also are like, but some of these things are not adding up. And I think she didn't want you to guess that was happening sooner, and I definitely like I would have guessed what was happening sooner, but I think that would have helped with the suspense to have you questioning who done it, basically. Have you have like the one story you think is right and then another story coming in. Like if you like this kind of book, I definitely suggest that you pick it up. And I don't think you need to have read the original Jane Eyre to necessarily like the callbacks to Jane Eyre, besides the initial situation of Jane, Mr. Rochester, and Bertha, are really not like anything that is strong enough that like if you haven't read the book, there's going to be stuff that you're not getting. It's like they're like little small Easter eggs for you if you are someone who has read this and is interested. Like if you have read Jane Eyre, like they're going to be fun to see, but if you haven't, I don't think you're gonna like, you can still read this and have a good time. That said, I really do enjoy Jane Eyre, and it's a good gothic novel, and I think one thing she did do is she kind of updated the, like she didn't, like this is not a gothic novel, but she still gave it some of that feel in places, so I did appreciate that. I ended up giving this 4 stars, and I think I'll be keeping it. I'm gonna read some of the other ones and see how I like the rest of the series, and then depending on where that goes, I will decide whether or not this is staying on my shelves or if I'm gonna get rid of it. But like, I do like Rachel Hawkins' writing and her characters and stuff. With that done, we will be moving on to Deadly Waters by Dot Hutchison. I am reading this book. That is such a helpful and useful thing to say. I'm excited. I definitely did this in the order that I thought I would like them, and I was correct about that order because I liked The Death of Mrs. Westaway. It was an interesting read. It got 3 stars. I liked The Wife Upstairs a lot more. It got 4 stars. This is going to be a 4 or 5 star book unless Dot does something truly horrendous. She also did something truly horrendous in her debut, and for reasons that are beyond me, I freaking love it. It's very out of character that I like that book as much as I like it, considering how it ends. But also, I fully went into it knowing that was going to be how it ended because it's Hamlet. I need to go and do some groceries, so I'll be back when I've read some more of the book. I'm here with an update
on Deadly Waters. And since I'm sitting right next to my laundry, I figure I'll fold some laundry while we do it. So I'm not loving this as much as I loved, like, The Butterfly Garden and The Roses of May. But I also remembered earlier, while I was kind of like on my walk thinking about it, that I didn't love The Butterfly Garden the way I do now, right from the start. It really, like the ending of The Butterfly Garden is what made it such a good book for me. So I'm curious to see what's going on here, or how this is going to end, and see if that's going to affect it. Like, I mean, it's still good. It's still, like, I stayed up until 2 a.m. Or 1 a.m. I went to bed early yesterday. These get hung up. Why am I doing this? They don't get folded. I stayed up until, like, 1 a.m. yesterday reading it. So, like, it's not like it's bad. It's just, it's so weird. It's so surreal to be reading, like, a book set in Gainesville. It's just, and even though I know that that's where Dot grew up, that's where I met her, like, it's weird. It is odd. I don't, like, she'll be describing stuff and I'll be like, I know where that is. I know where that is. What is happening? I know where that is. She's mentioning things like Cafe Risque. She's talking about Turlington Plaza and the Turlington potato. It's a sculpture. We all called it the potato because that's what it looks like. And some preacher trying to get it removed because it was obscene. And I'm like, it's a potato. It's a giant rock potato. I'm pretty sure that somebody just, like, dug that rock out of the earth and called it a sculpture and had done with it. We haven't mentioned the McDonald's fries yet, so there's that. And then, like, we just mentioned the memorial wall on 34th, which I didn't know that there was a permanent part of the wall that's been there since 1990. I knew that, like, it is a memorial for a lot of things, and you'll see a lot of stuff on there. I think I was there when Don't Tase Me Bro happened. I still think he deserved it, but also knowing what I know about the police now, probably, maybe not, I don't know. I still think he was an ass. I don't agree with what my reasons for being okay with him getting tased were back then, but I am still okay with him getting tased, I think. Now, granted, knowing what I now know, that might have been an over-exaggeration. This is a really weird tangent for me to go on that has nothing to do with this book. If you don't know, because I know Dot, I always go into these, I always go into stuff trying to figure out who the killer is, but, like, especially these, I go in trying to figure out who the killer is because of the things I know about Dot and how she writes. We knew each other for, like, a couple of years when I was in college. I think my last year of college is when we met. She showed up to my Chick-fil-A holding a copy of The Red Pyramid. I think she may also have been the one that, like, recommended the Percy Jackson series to me because she worked at Barnes & Noble when I met her. But I remember that she showed up with this giant binder and the Red Pyramid. Right? We started talking about that, and then I mentioned the binder, and she's like, oh, I'm working on a book. And I was like, oh, really? I'm a writer too. She clearly has done a lot more work on the whole working on a book front, but she also got a degree from the college that I live near for creative writing. So, like, my girl was a step ahead of me in a lot of ways because I was in my senior year of college before I figured out that writing is what I wanted to do. Actually, no, that's not correct. Like, I knew I wanted to, I've always known I wanted to write, but, like, wanting to make a career of it did not happen until probably when I was at Southeastern. Hi, it's 2023 and my brain broke in 2020. We'll get back there eventually. I'm just, you know, we are slowly getting back there, but that's not what this is about. Anyway, so I'm sitting here trying to figure this out, and, like, it cannot be Ellie. It can't, like all of the pieces are in place for it to be Ellie, and I wouldn't be surprised, and yet I don't feel like it's just the fact that we think it's Ellie from the beginning, that it's mentioned in the blurb, all of this stuff, I'm just like, it can't be Ellie. But we also have to have met the killer, and I've got, like, 2 suspects, but I'm like, no, but, like, in the first chapter, it very clearly is a student who is the suspect because they mentioned being at school and having been at school for 2.5 years, because there are 2 other people that I'm like, I think it might have been one of you dudes. And our main character, Rebecca, doesn't know what we know, so I have a feeling that she is going to end up suspecting one of the people that we've met. I don't want to give away too much. I think she's going to end up suspecting one of them just because, like, stuff lined up. But, like, in the first chapter, because we have, like, every now and then we get a chapter from the killer's point of view as they are setting things up, as they are getting ready. Like, the first one is one of the first murders that is discovered in kind of alligator infested waters. Funny, we just had something happen on a gator farm and I was like, wow, that is a thing only a Floridian is going to understand. That there are alligator farms. Like, again, it's so weird. Like, I grew up knowing Cafe Risque existed, but, like, it's so niche. If you're not going up on I-75 on a regular basis, you're not gonna know it's there. I'm enjoying this. I'm having so much fun reading this and having it be weird. It's honestly making me want to go back to Gainesville, because I am sure Dot went back to Gainesville to kind of get the lay of the land and see how much it had changed since she moved. She moved, I think, in like 2015, she moved out away from Gainesville, because her Barnes & Noble closed down, and I think she got transferred. I don't remember entirely. She lives somewhere that way. I say, like, this is west, so it's actually somewhere that way. It's an odd and very surreal experience whenever it's the same thing whenever somebody talks about Clearwater being the head of Scientology. It's like, I live 30 minutes away from there. Like, how do you know this place exists? We're only about halfway through, so obviously there are a lot more pieces that need to drop, and I have a feeling there are several more murders that are going to happen. But yeah, my goal is to have this finished by the end of the day and be able to wrap this vlog up so I can start other vlog projects. So, I'm not sure what I'm going to do the next. I think I'm just going to make this a series where I grab 3 books from my physical TBR, and they all have, like, some sort of similarity. Like, maybe they're all the same color spine, maybe they're all the same genre, maybe they're all from the same author. I don't know if that could happen, but it's possible. It is very possible, especially since I have a bunch of Holly Black up there. Pretty much the only person I'd be able to do that with. But that is beside the point. I will check back in when either I have a reaction or I have finished the book. It's funny, all 3 of the ones that I have chosen are very, not necessarily domestic, although they are, but they're very, like, low-key thrillers about a character going about their daily, like, everyday life and noticing stuff is off. So, we'll see. Good morning. So, if you're wondering, Margaret, you look a little different. It's because I forgot to record an outro, and it's the last you saw me was January, and now it is June. We wear tank tops now. I finished Deadly Waters and gave it 4 stars. I was expecting it to be a 5-star read because most of her books have it. It didn't quite have that little, like, extra oomph factor that I need for a 5-star read, though. Still just as well written. Still just, like the twist at the end. Dot. What do you want to bet I did record the ending clip and I just forgot to hit record? It is possible. I have done that a couple of times where I'm like, I know I sat down and talked about this, but this file no longer exists. I like this. This was really fun just to kind of get to revisit where I went to college, and I loved just so much of this book was so good. I had a whole bunch of theories that ended up being very incorrect about who ended up being the main killer was not someone I suspected, if that makes sense. There's someone that I immediately was like, there's no way it would make, like, there's no way that it's this person. No way. But the way that Dot, like, structures it really works. It really works. Because we do, like I said, we do have the 2 different viewpoints. We have our main character, Rebecca, and then we have the killer's point of view. And one is in 3rd person and one is in 1st person, and so that kind of creates a layer of separation between, not separation, it creates a layer of kind of obfuscation? Obfuscation? I don't know how you pronounce that word, but it puts a layer between the 2 narratives that makes you less likely to realize who the fuck it is. I mean, this is fun, just watching, like, what was going on. The one thing that I'm like, this is odd and weird is there is a little bit of a romance with a cop who's older, and I was kind of into it, but also a cab. Like, he's gotta be at least 30. Gotta be. I mean, I guess he could be late 20s. Late 20s, it is her final year, I believe, or her junior year, something like that. I want to say it's her senior year. I don't remember. This was 6 months ago. If he was in his late 20s, it could work. It could work. It could work. But also, a cop. Dot. I do want to point out this was written pre-2020, because it came out, I believe it came out in 2020. Yeah, it came out in 2020. Well, I will say there are a lot of trigger warnings when it comes to sexual assault and rape, because we see
at least one almost happen. Actually, we see probably two almost happen. What time is it? I need to keep an eye on the time. Yeah, we see two almost happen, and then because of the trajectory of the story, the boys that are dying are in like this whisper network at the college of girls who are saying, hey, don't go to this fraternity, frat house, that's the word, frat house, don't, it's been a long time since I was in college, guys, don't go to this frat house, stay away from this person, like, people who are known to have assaulted multiple women, or multiple students, and so people are, like, they've been passing, so those are the guys that are dying, and at some point, some of the victims of the rapes, not the for murders, but of the rapes, do start coming forward, and they start talking about, like, telling their stories about what happened to them and how nobody believed them. There was a minute where I thought the most unlikely person was the one doing it. But then I was like, no, that's not gonna do something that tropey and weird. And she didn't. She did something a little bit better. Just a little bit better than what I was like, oh, that would be a really wild twist, but no, this is not a soap opera. So I will say there are trigger warnings for that because there's a lot of discussion of that. But if that is something that you like to see examined in fiction, and if that is something that you want to see, like, it was really nice, even though people were dying, it was nice kind of seeing this kind of justice and how it affected the girls that had been, you know, kind of living with their heads down or had been affected, who hadn't been believed. Like, it was really nice to see how that all went down and how that affected everything. It kept me going. It kept me gripped. I was like, oh my god, I've got to figure out what's going on here. It's really good. It's really good. It's not my favorite, but also I think the last, like, it's probably, like, I'd say, this is hard. Because of the books I've read by Dot, 3 of them have been 5 stars. Another one was a 4-star, although I don't know how much of that was who I was when I read it. I would say, but the collector series is just, like, yeah, I have to say of Dot's works, like, the collector series is my favorite so far. Then we have A Wounded Name, then we have this. And it's specifically the first 2 books of the collector series, Wounded Name, and then probably Summer Children, and then this. Just because I love that series so much. Oh my god. If you haven't read Dot's collector series, it is, I don't recommend reading it, at least I don't recommend reading the first one on audio, because the way she structures it, it's very hard to follow. It was like my 5th time reading it on audiobook. It's very hard to follow on audiobook. You need to, like, sit down and read it physically or read it immersion reading. Let's talk about final thoughts on this. I'm going to say the least favorite on this was the Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. It was good. I was gripped. I like this so much. Like, I've read other kind of in this genre, like The Woman on the Train, was not connected, did not care about the characters. I cared about our main character. I cared about some of the people in here. The twist at the end was just, like, I knew who it was. I think part of what happened at the end, or part of it is, part of it had to have something to do with, like, the ending and things like that. There were certain things that I think I wanted to see that we didn't get to see that it felt like they were being set up for. But overall, this was so satisfying and so interesting, and I just love this kind of exploration of what family is, and what people will do to keep secrets and things like that. And I just, very, very, very good. We loved it. The murder that happens in this book is not the murder you think it was gonna be. Also, we were really worried there for a minute about some of it, but thank God we didn't go there. There's a specific moment that I came in after, and we figured out who everyone was in this whole thing, and, like, the pieces were kind of starting to, yeah, it was good. After that, I'm gonna say The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This was 4 stars. I liked it. I liked it a lot. This was, like, I didn't care about any of the characters. It's funny. I was really interested to see what happened, what was going on. I thought that Rachel Hawkins did a fantastic job of, like, building these characters and building this world and using these perspectives. I do still stand by my assessment that we needed competing POVs. If we were going to have a point of view other than Jane's, we needed the other 2 point of views to be competing point of views. Like, I think there could have been a really interesting, like, contradiction in the 2 point of views if we had done that, versus kind of the way that we do it. You kind of feel like you know what's going to happen, and it does take, like, even though it, like ends up being a little, it takes away some of the tension and some of the concern and all of that stuff. And it's like, okay, well then why am I worried about this? It really does do a really interesting twist though on the whole, like, what's his face shows up looking for his sister, Bertha Mason's brother shows up looking for her. There's a really interesting twist on that, so I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite. I wasn't a big fan of the ending. Again, I really do like the original Jane Eyre. I understand why people have, you know, issues and things like that with it. I understand it doesn't handle some stuff as well as it could have. It's a classic. There are certain things that, you know, are kind of the time. That doesn't excuse them, but I am able to look past them because they're not the worst, number one. And number two, like, it's still, like, it's an effective and enjoyable book, and a lot of it is, in fact, actually historically accurate to how certain situations would have been handled in the past. So I did not love this, but I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a really fast and interesting read. I recommend it. I'm going to see if I like, I know there are 2 other books in this series. I'm going to see if I like the other 2 books before I decide whether or not I want to keep this, because I don't feel, this isn't one that I'm, like, this is not going to be the Butterfly Garden where I reread it over and over and over and over and over and over again. But also I've liked Rachel Hawkins' other work, so there's potential there. And then my favorite, as I predicted, was Deadly Waters by Dot Hutchison. We said we gave this 4 stars. It was good. I recommend it. You just heard me talk about it. I think that it has a lot of really interesting introspection about how we treat rape victims, how we treat sexual assault victims. I think it has such, just like it's very much a revenge fantasy type of thing, because that is what our murderer is out to do, and that is what our murderer is able to accomplish, obviously, because these boys end up dead, you know? They end up dead. We support women's rights. We also support women's wrongs. And, like, all of the thought process behind how the murderer is able to commit these murders and keep getting away with them and that kind of thing, it makes sense. I liked Rebecca as a main character. We really did get to see, like, how women take care of each other and how they look out for each other, especially in settings like these. If you are interested in any of these books, I definitely would say, like, none of these were like, don't read that. Definitely, obviously, 3 and 4 stars. I have other videos in this series coming out eventually. Some of them have been completed. One of them I have been working on for a couple of months. It's fine. Listen, March through May just stopped existing. So if you're interested in other reading projects of mine, I will have one right over here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That is it for now, my friends. I will see you later when we will talk about more, oh, I should tell you happy reading. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye! There are people yelling outside my door. Please hold.